Hello, everybody. I just want to kind of take the time to share with you about what God's been doing here at Trinity Baptist Church and also out in the community. You know, we're all been dealing with this pandemic and looking at the disaster of it and all the bad in it, but there's also been some good in it. And as our church just came off a 7-week series on Contagious, and we talked about being like the church in Acts. And I began to have people that don't even go to church here from the community, you know, coming in and telling me how God had changed them through that series. And that was just so encouraging to me. And then seeing people in our own church developing a hunger for God like they haven't had. And I think that is one of the problems, that we become so stale in church that, you know, instead of taking the church into the community, we have brought the community into the church. We become just like them. So this series, I really believe, not only it changed me, and I allowed the Spirit to work on me, and I removed several things from my life that I felt like was keeping me from where I needed to be with God. And I've had just several reports from people in the church who are doing the same thing. You know, we should never be satisfied with where we are with Jesus. And that is my desire as pastor of this church to help them to grow and to continue to grow myself. And I thank the Lord for that passion that He has put in this church through this series. We've just started a new series just last Sunday. It's called Why Follow Jesus, and we're going to continue on with that this Sunday. And I am looking so forward to that. But we have to come in church. We need to be prayed up before we ever get to church. We need to pray for our worship leaders and the songs that they're going to sing. We need to pray for the people, the pews, and the people that are going to be coming in. Always pray for your pastor, whether it's here or where you're at another church. Always be prayed, and then simply ask God, God, I am ready to receive from you today, Lord. Lord, help me. Open my ears. Open my heart, Lord. Lord, help me to be ready to receive that word. Come expecting a word from God. I believe that's all the difference in the world. I believe when we do that, we're going to see our churches change. I believe that people in the community are going to see a difference in us. You know, we have got to get out of the norm of just being Christians. I believe I'm saved. I think that is one of the greatest problems that we have. I look back to a story in Luke chapter 18 where the boy come and said, "Good teacher, what must I do to be saved?" And as Jesus began to talk to him, you know, the boy, he realized Jesus as teacher. He realized him as a religious example. And I think that sometimes we do that. We come to church, maybe we read our Bible, but there's no change in our life. And I think that we must allow God to do a work inside of us. He desires to get closer and closer with us, but we must allow that to happen. I look at another story over in John chapter 6 where Jesus had fed the multitude with the bread and the fish. And those people were following Jesus, but Jesus turned around and He told them, He said, the only reason that y'all are following me is because you got your belly full. And I believe a lot of times we get caught up in that. We come to church for the emotional part of it. We come to church for what we can get out of it. But there's so much more out there that God wants to do. So I encourage you today to allow Jesus to do that work. I encourage you to pray and ask God, God, what is it that I have inside of me that's keeping me from being where I need to be with you? In Galatians 1, Paul talks about Jesus revealing Himself to him. And he's talking about how there became a life change. And that's the way it is, you know, and I can remember the time that it happened in my life. You know, Paul talks about the old man being gone and a new man you coming up. You know, that's what a life change is. We begin to see these old things remove, and it don't happen overnight. I'm not saying that, but we're no longer that same person when we allow Jesus to clean us up. And I'm not talking about the first day, first week. It should continue to be that way in church. Even today, as Gosh, 17 years I have been saved. 5 years I've been the pastor here at TBC. Before that I was assistant pastor, youth pastor. But God is continuing to do a work in my life. And through His Word, I have found myself hungry for God. And I just pray that you can, if you don't have a church home, I just invite you to come and be a part. I know this COVID is going on, and I know that Satan is using this to fill our hearts with fear, but through this, I pray that we learn to trust God. We learn to focus on Him, because He is calling every one of us to follow Him. So my advice to you would be today was to get your eyes on Jesus. He knows everything that's going on, and He's in control. He just wants to love us. He just wants a relationship with us. And we can have that. And I told my church just this morning, don't ever be satisfied with where you are. God's not satisfied with where we are. He wants us to be closer. And so that I pray that is your desire today. And I just want to invite you, if you don't have a church home, to come be with us. If you can't be with us, then I would love to have you to worship with us online. And if you choose not to do that, I just ask you to pray with us here at TBC, because our desire is to grow closer and closer to Christ. We want to be that church that God has called us to be. We love you all. God bless.